I am Josh Cassidy, and I'm working on a project called Kauri. Kauri is a decentralized open platform for the curation of technical knowledge around ecosystem projects.
Okay, so how would you describe this to someone who wouldn't know the meaning of the long words?
So I would say think of it all as Wikipedia for open source projects with an incentivization mechanism. That's like phase one, and phase two would be a cross between that and then Upwork. So
Right.
Upwork, where you can find experts and then pay experts for their expertise.
Right, because Wikipedia is more like an encyclopedia. It doesn't really have as much of like one person's kind of knowledge in one place.
Yeah.
And so yours is more like a person makes a request for a certain kind of knowledge.
Yeah, so it's more framed around open source software. So what would
Okay.
happen is, so I might have a library. So let's say, for instance, Web3.js may have a content area on the Carry platform. And so if I was working with Web3.js and I was struggling to integrate it into my DApp, then as a developer, I'll come to the Carry platform and look for some technical knowledge, look for some answers of how to resolve my issue. If I can't find what I'm looking for, I can put in a request and say, somebody please create this content for me. I'm struggling to do this integration. Somebody please produce a tutorial so I can understand it better. And then anybody, the request is live, it's out there for anyone to see. They can attach a bounty to that, and so to incentivize contributors to get more involved. Somebody can come in and write a really great tutorial and submit it to the platform. And then there's like a moderation process. So experts within Web3j, normally it will start with the developers, but they can then expand that to the wider community. They would review the documentation, review the tutorial, and once they approve it, it will then become part of the Carry platform. And then that's freely available for any developer to then see going forward.
It seems like that probably solves a problem that people had, trying to get what they needed on GitHub, but they didn't want to start a whole Upwork task and try to go through the whole process of vetting all these different people to do what they needed if it was maybe a small collaborative kind of effort. That's awesome. So do you have a technical background?
I do. So I have been a developer for the past 12 years, mainly in Java developer in financial institutions.
Okay, great.
And I've been looking into Solidity for the past 1.5 years.
Great.
This was kind of like one of the why this kind of project resonated with me, because when I was learning Solidity, I found it very difficult to find up-to-date documentation.
Right.
And because the space is so new and the technology is changing so fast, tutorials that you found 6 months ago are now out of date. So what I found was I was downloading tutorials and like example code, compiling them, and they weren't compiling. And that became very frustrating because I just couldn't figure out where was the right place to go and find the information I need to find. So that kind of is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this platform.
Great. Well, since you do have a technical background, I can ask you a question about Chronologic's Ethereum alarm clock, which is scheduling transactions and smart contracts for the future. Can you think of any use cases for that kind of technology?
In Kauri?
Or unrelated.
Unrelated. So
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, because the Ethereum platform it's deterministic, and so you can't schedule anything. So if I create a smart contract, and let's say, for instance, I wanted to make sure that I put some funds and lock up some funds, and the person who I sent the funds to couldn't access it until 24 hours, for instance, then the only way that's guaranteed to happen is that I can lock the funds in the smart contract for 24 hours, but the recipient would then have to make a request to pull the funds out.
It's just more steps.
So it's a few more steps. So that's a very basic example, but I guess if you had a scheduling service, the scheduling service could call the contract in 24 hours and distribute the funds. Okay, and that could be if I was sending funds to somebody who didn't have enough ETH to be able to process the transaction themselves.
Okay, right? That's a good use case that no one's talked about. Yeah, good idea. Okay, so how can people learn more about your project?
So if you want to learn more about Kauri, we are going to be launching a competition in April.
Great.
So you can go to Kauri.io. It's KAURI.io. And you can find us there, and you can send us an email at info@Kauri.io. So we don't have like too much information out there at the moment because we're just developing the project, but we are going to start promoting it very soon. So yeah, look out for us in April.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.